guys, it's Kelly Ledeville here, and I'm back with another video for W+9. Today we are doing some brightly colored lilies because honestly I need a break from the winter cards. So we're using Tropic Fever, Basic Labels, the Be Merry, I know it's a Christmas set, and the Sympathy Lilies. But I'm not really using any of the things that like the themes that they're intended for, because you guys know I'm a big fan of getting more out of the stamp sets that you buy. So here I am, this actually, the way the started carded, wow, Kelly, the way the card started out, enunciation is important, guys, like, you know, so people can understand what you're saying. Anyway, the way that I started was I stamped in black, and then I stamped my mask in black, and my intent was to use a ink blending tool with this Lake House ink to go around it. Well, what I discovered is the black ink that I used, which is a Copics safe ink, actually smeared. It didn't dry down all the way, and so it smeared off of my mask, and it made my background like this grayish blue, which could be pretty for something else, but it was not what I was going for. So ignore the background. I have a fix for that. You guys know I think everything is fixable, and this in fact totally is, and it's simple. So we're going to get right into the Copic coloring. You are going to notice that I'm starting backwards. I'm actually starting from my darkest color. The reason I'm starting from my darkest color is because I wanted my lilies to change colors. So Googling lilies, which you guys know that I do, whenever I'm coloring an image, I wanted to see what colors they came in, and they did have some really, really like purple to orange ones. So I wanted to do kind of a play off that. When I first started, I had the RV09, or I'm sorry, V09, 06, 04, a RV04, a YR04, a Y38, and a Y08. After I did the first petal, and you might have to go back over this a couple of times to make sure everything blends correctly. After I did the first one, I very quickly realized that when the Y38 went over top of the RV04, it basically made the YR04 color. So from here on out, I'm just going to leave it out because I didn't need it. I didn't need it to get a good blend. So here, when I was coloring the one petal, I realized that I kind of missed the petal that was on, like the part of the petal that was on the side. So I have to go back in and color that. I'm not going to, because it's the same thing over and over again, I'm going to show you a couple of different petals, but I'm not going to show you everything because I colored them all the same way. So with each color, I am going over the other color that was ahead of it. So I'm putting down the V09, and then I'm going over that with the V06. And then I'm going over all of that with the V04. And then going from there. The reason the RV04 is in there is because I needed a color to mix, because yellow, which is the tip of my flower, and purple, which is the base of my petal, are complementary colors. And if they mix together, they make brown. So I needed some buffer colors in the middle. And I knew that I wanted it to be more like a bright orangish color because I think that's super pretty with purple. But I needed that pink in the middle to kind of be a transition color for me. And then I'm still doing the same thing that I always do, which is, you know, coloring along the shape of the petal. So rounding my strokes, like for this one that kind of is bowed out. So I still want to, you know, achieve some dimension. If you are doing this, and you find that you're not getting a ton of dimension with the colors that you're, you know, putting down, you can always shade it with your gray markers. I know that that seems a little bit weird because typically I shade everything within its own color family, but the gray markers do work really well for when you want to use a bunch of different colors, and then you just need to shade all of it. Grays will work very well for that. So like I said, I'm not going to do every single petal. This will probably be the last one that I do, and then we'll move on to the next step. But I colored them all the same. I did, you guys have heard me when I talk about shading before and tell you, like, trying to figure it out, if there is a object on top of another object. So in this case, a petal on top of another petal, you're going to add shading there. And then it is, because it is a little bit, like I said, more difficult to shade something when you're doing multiple colors. I actually paused the camera in the middle of me coloring the second flower so that I could show you here how this first flower is on top of the other one. So now I'm bringing back that YR04, but I know it needs to be darker. So I looked in my little bag to see what I had, and I ended up picking a YR09 and an E09. I feel like I'm speaking hieroglyphics to you by just naming off the colors, but the E09 is a brown, but it's a very, very reddish brown. So just adding that bit of depth and then blending it back out with the other colors is going to push that second flower behind the first one. Like I said, you can also do this with grays, so you don't have to try to figure out like what colors should go where as far as the shading. That was really the only one that I had to add any extra colors to. And then I'm going to move on to the leaves. For the leaves, I wanted them to, I guess I didn't want them to just be plain green. They are still just green, but I tried to add a little bit of something to them by putting in some veins along in the, I guess like just along like the center of it. So you'll see as I'm coloring, I'm adding shading underneath the petal because one object on top of another. But I'm also kind of pulling out little sections of color along the entire front of the leaf. So that way it's going to add just a little bit more interest. And really, I don't want it to compete with the changing color lilies we've got going on here. But I do want it to complement it. And I didn't want them to be too simple. So I'm, like I said, this one I am doing the way I normally color, lightest to darkest, darkest to lightest. And then I'm just going over those same areas. And then when I go back, I'm extending them out. I'm extending out the longer lines almost finally on the third color, I think, like I almost connect them to the outside edge. And then just fill in a little bit of that center so that the highlight portion is just a very small area that's in between them. Sometimes when you go over darker colors with lighter colors, the RV Zero family is notorious for this. It picks up quite a bit of the other color. And I did find that was happening for me with the YG01 and the YG03. So I ended up going back in with the 03 and just putting down a little bit more color so it didn't look so washed out. And then I did all the leaves like that. Everything the same. I went back in with the 17 too. Look, see, and I probably went in with the 67 as well because I can look at it and see that I don't like how dark it is in the middle. So, my apologies. I colored it a couple of days ago and it's just been a little bit crazy trying to get the video edited. For the center of them, I am doing yellows and oranges just in the middle. That's what, when I looked at the pictures on Google, that seemed to be what most of their stamen was. So really just kind of leaving the yellow at the top of the stamens and then, putting more of the orange at the bottom. I wanted to make sure my colors really blended nicely. And I'm going to be honest, my images felt a little bit flat. So I am going to go in and add some details, with my colored pencils. I just use Prismacolor pencils, and you want to make sure that they're sharpened, that the tips are to a point. And then I'm going to use this to kind of extend out the color into the next color so that they blend a little bit nicer together. Don't be afraid to take your purple up into like your pink and orange. Don't be afraid to be able to take like your yellow and your orange down into your pink and purple. It's going to help them blend better. Now, I do want to tell you, so I outline all of my images. You guys know that. I like a bold pop of black, especially with a bright color like something like this. But if you put down too much colored pencil, it's very difficult to outline them with a marker. You may, if you put down so much colored pencil that you have that, wax buildup, you may have to outline them if you want to with a black colored pencil. Sometimes I have done that in my other coloring. This one, my marker ended up being fine. The EK Success Journaling pen, like that ended up being fine. It wasn't a big deal. I didn't put down so much colored pencil that it was an issue, but I also forgot to film it because I was right on top of it. There's so many like little lines. So I had paused it and then I figured, well, I would just show a snippet of it, and then I forgot it because I got so involved in what I was doing that I forgot to turn the camera back on. So that's my bad. And then I did the same thing for the leaves with just two different green colors, just kind of darkened up those areas and then blended them out a little more. I feel like the colored pencil did make a much bigger difference in like kind of extending the colors, like the purple pinkish color at the base, and getting them to blend a little bit more nicely. Yeah. So life has been a little bit, just with the holidays and stuff. I went over to my mom and dad's last night, to play. I got Rummy Cube. I don't know if you guys ever played that. My grandmother and I logged so many hours playing Rummy Cube when I was growing up. But I went over there to play Rummy Cube with my mom. And then, of course, Peanut wanted to play, and then he quit halfway through, and it was it was fine. But so we did that. But while we were playing in that game, they have wild tiles, and Peanut had picked one of them as part of his initial draw of tiles. He had picked a wild one, and then when he laid them down, my mom ended up taking it, and it was like a personal affront that he was like, that's my wild, you can't take it. That's my wild, you can't take it. And I was like, no, buddy, that's how the game's played. And he was like, no, but it's mine. Like, actually got out of his seat, walked around the table, and tried to take it back from my mother. It was hysterical. He just could not understand why he couldn't keep his wild tile, because those were his. So this background is a little bit more of what I was thinking, something a little bit brighter. I still wanted to use the Tropic Fever background, so I put down Salty Ocean just in the top left-hand corner, which, again, was not my original orientation, was not to put it in the left, but then once I had it cut out, I was kind of like, ooh, I can put it anywhere I want it. So I am inking up the right-hand side of the stamp with Lake House, and then I'm going to use a damp baby wipe to kind of blot off the edges, because I really only want it to stamp just behind where my flower is going to be, just to add a little bit more interest so it isn't just a plain background. And so in order to do this, by the way, because you can see it covers the whole thing, I did put down some like adhesive, the rolly kind of adhesive. I can't think of what. Tape runner. Whoa, got it. Yes, Kelly. So I did put tape runner on my actual black mat in my MISTI so that it would stick. Here I'm trying to make sure that I have my lilies where I want them in order to be able to adhere the other lilies. And because this actually worked out really well, because I ended up trimming it out from the background, I was able to stamp the lilies again in the last leaf, and that actually made the solid leaves in the image green, which made me really happy, because when I originally stamped it, I didn't love that they were black, but I also knew that I wanted the rest of like my flowers to be stamped in black. So I was like, casualties of war, I'm just going to suck it up. But this actually gave me a way to, kind of have my cake and eat it too, so that I still had the green leaves, but not the green like outline for my flowers. So you'll see I'm sure you have seen, like when I trimmed it out, there was a section that was just white. And I just picked I think it was a B02 that I picked to just fill that section in so it would match the background. And then I stamped the banner from Be Merry, and I wanted to use this to hold my sentiment. So for the shading, it's just 3 colors. I want it to be white. And then I used a C1 and a C3 on the top portion of it. And in order to push the little edges into the background, I used a C5. That was the darkest color out there, that just kind of pushed it out, or, like behind, and started to give it that real dimension. I didn't use that on the top layer. I just didn't think it was necessary for it to have some shading. Then, of course, went back over it with my lightest color, and then I trimmed this out. Oh, no, I didn't. I'm lying to you. See, I told you I cannot remember the order in which I did things. This is actually going to get a little bajiggity here. So I wanted, the basic labels has a bunch of really good tiny sentiments in it, which I think is so helpful to have. So I wanted it to say, for you, just because. That's what I wanted it to say. Once I stamped it, can you see like how crazy, because the Just Because is a little bit bigger than the For You, and they didn't line up, and I was rushing. I will give you that. I was rushing and I wasn't paying really good attention. So I didn't realize how just crazy it looked until I was taking my photographs. And then I was looking at it and I was like, this looks wild. What are you doing? So I ended up going back after the fact, after I was done filming and everything, to fix it. So you're going to notice that in the photo, the label looks different, and that is why. I struggled. At first I like would stamp it and I would be like, okay, it's straight, it looks good. And then I would go to put it on the card and I was like, no, this looks just crazy weird. I did outline the edges with a Memento Tuxedo black marker. You want to use something that's non-alcohol based so it doesn't bleed into your card. But I was like, okay, this looks crazy. And I think it was because I put the leaf over top of it, which you'll see here in a minute, that it looked just a little bit more off center. So ultimately I ended up, like by the time you see the final photo, I ended up gluing down 3 different labels. And when I was outlining it, my lines got a little bit like crazy. This particular banner has like really pretty little dots that accent the outer edge. And I had like gone over some of the dots. So I ended up just making the outline on the one that stayed on the card much larger, and I liked that a lot better. I didn't really ever have intentions originally of cutting out like a separate flower and a separate leaf, but I didn't like the way the banner just looked like it was just hanging out there. So I ended up coloring another one off camera, trimming them out, and then popping them up over the banner. And I do like the way it looks. I think it looks cute, and it makes the banner more part of the bouquet. But I also think that that is part of the reason why I felt like my sentiment was so crooked. Not that Just Because, this one actually is crooked. So I'm just going to trim off one little part of that flower so I can tuck it behind the banner, because it's already adhered down there. I'm not going to pull it up and ruin my card when I can just, trim off part of it and then just kind of tuck it behind there. So, yeah, I just really was not feeling the winter scenes anymore. I needed something with bright color. I had to get my fix in. And this whole thing kind of honestly reminds me a little bit of like a Kay Miller card, which I honestly am flattering myself because Kay Miller is so talented. I love all of the things that she makes. But just very bright colors, blue background, that whole thing is what I mean when I say Kay Miller. So that is pretty much the whole card. You'll see the final photo here in a second about the way the banner looks. So thank you guys so much for joining me, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye.